Hello and welcome to Z. In this episode, we are traveling to United States of America and visit the $30 million monument, Washington Monument. Stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon. The Washington Monument. The Washington Monument is an obelisk-shaped structure on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., designed to honor George Washington, Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War and the first President of the United States, 1789 to 1797. The monument, made of marble, granite, and bluestone gneiss, is both the world's tallest predominantly stone structure and the world's tallest obelisk, standing 554 feet 7 plus 1132 inches, 169.046 m, tall according to the United States National Geodetic Survey, measured 2013 to 14. Or 555 feet 5 plus 18 inches, 169.294 m, tall according to the National Park Service, measured 1884. If all monumental columns are measured above their pedestrian entrances, it is the highest in the world. Between 1884 to 1889, it was the highest building in the world, until it was surpassed by the Eiffel Tower in Paris. The Cologne Cathedral was once the highest building. Thick, with concrete encasing half of its original bluestone gneiss debris. The marble cornerstone, 21 feet, 6.4 meters below ground at the northeast corner of the foundation, has a zinc container packed with artifacts. On a huge circle of poles centered on the monument, 50 American flags hang. To avoid a terrorist assault, a temporary screening facility was constructed to the entry in 2001. The monument was slightly damaged by an earthquake in 2011, and it was closed until 2014. From August 2016 until September 2019, it was closed again for elevator system repairs, security enhancements, and soil pollution remediation. History of the Washington Monument. The Washington National Monument Society was founded by Chief Justice John Marshall, George Waterston, and James Madison with the intention of honoring George Washington with a lasting monument in our nation's capital. Congress approved the memorial to be constructed on public lands within Washington, D.C., 15 years after the group was founded. The original 1791 plan of Washington, D.C. by Peter L'Enfant included space for a central monument to Washington. The ultimate position was chosen as the National Mall Center, east of the reflecting pool. Due to financing constraints, the project was scaled back to 500 feet tall and without the surrounding adornments. With the location determined and 20,000 people in attendance, the 24,500-pound cornerstone was placed in 1848. However, at just 152 feet tall, the Washington National Monument Society's finance ran out 6 years later, bringing the private phase of building to a close. When was the Washington Monument constructed? The notion of a 600-foot obelisk costing $200,000 appeared grandiose when the Washington Monument was initially proposed. Scaling back to 500 feet and concentrating on the obelisk itself brought the project closer to completion, but after running out of financing in 1854 after only reaching 152 feet, the project was put on hold. The obelisk stood unfinished for 7 years, with the surrounding property being utilized as cow pasture throughout the Civil War. Mills, the original architect, died, and it wasn't until 15 years later that Congress became interested in the project, approved $2 million in financing, and seized responsibility of its funding and construction with the Army Corps of Engineers. Unfortunately, the quarry for stones was no longer available at this time, and another supply had to be found. A belt of stone was given by the New Massachusetts source, but because the quality and color did not match, a third quarry had to be identified. The third quarry in Baltimore supplied the third group of stones necessary to finish construction. Thomas Lincoln Casey was hired to fortify the foundation and manage the building of steps and an elevator. Finally, a second cornerstone was set in 1880 to celebrate the resumption of building. At the time, 26 feet of the building were completed, and a year later, another 76 feet were added, resulting in the completion of half of the monument in the 48 years after the project began. The remaining half of the monument was built over the next 3 years, with a capstone and etched aluminum tip added on December 6th at 2:17 p.m. Who constructed the Washington Monument? The Washington National Monument Society, a private corporation, provided the initial concepts, finance, and inspiration after selecting architect Robert Mills to create the design. However, due to the amount of time required to create the final structure, the monument was funded by Congress through the Army Corps of Engineers. The engineers vertically put individual slabs, expanding the monument foot by foot using pulleys and an interior elevator designed by the Otis brothers. The monument was officially dedicated to the first American president on December 21, 1884, a day before Washington's birthday. By this time, the Otis brothers had converted the original labor elevator into a passenger elevator, and the public could take the first 10-minute journey to the top of the monument 2 years later. While it is hard to verify that slave labor was employed during the monument's construction due to a lack of documents, it is argued that slave labor was utilized in the monument's construction, at least in its early phases. Slave labor was used in other constructions throughout this time period, and the 3 original founders of the society were all slave owners. The Washington Monument's design. Robert Mills modeled the monument after the ageless Egyptian obelisk, demonstrating his fascination in all things Egyptian. The Washington Monument was planned to be the highest man-made construction in the world at 600 feet, and even after a reduction to 555 feet, it kept the distinction until the Eiffel Tower was constructed. It is still the highest freestanding stone construction, taller even than the pyramids themselves. The total marble and granite construction weighs 90,854 tons, with a base of blue gneiss and 36,491 stone blocks. Although weathering has highlighted the differences between the 3 layers from the various quarries, the monument remains the tallest obelisk in the world and an impressive structure to commemorate the president described by Major General Henry Lee as first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. What is the height of the Washington Monument? At 555 feet and 5 1/8 inches tall, and topped with the biggest piece of aluminum ever cast at the time, the monument is still the world's highest freestanding stone building and obelisk. Visitors to the finished monument could expect to spend 10 to 12 minutes merely ascending the obelisk in the original elevator to the viewing deck, from whence they could enjoy panoramic views of almost 25 miles in all directions. Washington Monument Facts. 1. The monument is constructed of freestanding masonry, which means that no cement is used to keep the blocks together. 2. The first elevator journey lasted 8 to 10 minutes. A common myth is that the elevator ride was deemed unsafe for women and children when it opened to the public. 3. The Washington Monument has 896 steps to the top. 4. Due to vandalism and safety concerns, the stairs were blocked to visitors going up in 1971 and down in 1976. There have been ranger-led groups down the steps since then, but due to staffing concerns, this is sometimes blocked for years at a time. To enhance the experience, the elevator windows defog at specific locations to allow tourists to view inside the monument. In 1959, an elevator technician sprinted up the steps in 11 minutes while performing maintenance. 5. The cap at the monument's apex is constructed of aluminum, which was a new and unusual technology at the time. 6. The view from the peak spans more than 30 kilometers. 7. At 555 feet tall, the Washington Monument was the tallest edifice in the world when it was first erected. When the Eiffel Tower was erected in 1889, this record was broken. 8. At the 152-foot point, the color of the stone changes. Construction was delayed because to a lack of funds. When it resumed, marble from a different quarry was utilized. 9. The monument was built using 3 distinct types of stones, including stones from Maryland, north of Baltimore, and Massachusetts. 10. The monument cost $1,187,710 to build, which is comparable to $30 million in today's money. This is all for now. Thank you for being with us.